Welcome back. In our previous video, we took a look at all of the Macintosh laptops I currently own as of February of 2018. It's only natural to continue this series with our PC laptops. The first one I'm going to show you is an IBM ThinkPad 355C. This laptop was manufactured somewhere between 1994 and 95. It is one of the original ThinkPad series machines. This laptop I rescued. It was headed essentially towards the dumpster in a software business that was closing its doors. It was a software developer business. And this laptop is in excellent condition. And I want to stress that the laptops that I'm going to show you really are the best examples of their kind from what I could find. And a lot of them were essentially salvaged exactly the same way this one was. They were headed towards the trash, and I intervened. This laptop is in very good condition, but it is definitely a fairly base model version of a 355C. It has the only high-end option this one has is a TFT display, color TFT display. Like all ThinkPads, it features the track-point device in the middle of the keyboard. In the early 90s, having a laptop with a built-in pointing device for the Windows generation was really a luxury item. It was a great thing to have. Not every laptop had integrated pointing devices. The Compaq Contour line had an external clip-on trackball that was essentially a rebadged Logitech product, or made for Compaq by Logitech. And keeping with the ThinkPad design theme, this really was designed to be the bento box style device where you can actually lift the keyboard up by pulling forward on the latches all the way, allowing you to replace or upgrade the battery, hard drive, or floppy drive. In this laptop, the floppy drive can be removed and replaced with an additional battery pack. The hard drive could be upgraded or taken out for security reasons. This is similar, actually this is a kind of a less expensive, older version of another laptop I'm going to show you later on. So let's turn this laptop on and see what you can do. As far as specs, I don't recall exactly what this laptop featured. I'm pretty sure it was a 46 SLC. It's a low power consumption version. You gotta be careful with these latches, they're a little tricky sometimes. Here, let me get this open. Yeah, there we go. The keyboard wasn't fully locked down. The power key. Now this laptop has some built-in features. It has a built-in, probably a 33.6 modem or something to that effect. 14.4, 33.6, somewhere in that range. Could be 28.8. It does feature a dead clock battery, as you can now see. This is a typical IBM error, but we're going to just bypass that. BIOS date is 1/1 of 94, so, or at least the default date on this one. It does feature 12 megs of RAM. This may have been upgraded from a base 8 or 4 meg configuration. And the display is not the brightest, but this laptop is currently running Windows 3.1 on top of a DOS 6.22 install. The hard drive that's in this laptop, if I'm not mistaken, is something around 200 megabytes. It's a fairly small drive, even for 1995 standards, or early 94, or mid to late 94. I honestly don't know the exact age. All the ThinkPad utilities have been downloaded and reinstalled on a clean installation of Windows. You take a look at... this is actually one of the best machines in my collection. I try to collect only units that are prime examples, both condition-wise and hopefully, if possible, spec-wise of what they were. While this laptop may be the lower end or the cheaper ThinkPad, being a 300 series and also having some options deleted. We'll take a look at that in a second. It is not the greatest, but the condition is superb. And I imagine this laptop had a very, very easy life. And I'm going to show you, just as I did in the Macintosh series, we're going to take a look at the keyboard and see what kind of wear marks it has and how abused it is. And you're going to find it's actually in quite good condition. So let's take a look at the hard drive properties. Let's see if I can get info. There's get info. I haven't used Windows 3.1 in so long. I can't do properties on the drive. What I can do here, let's just do a MS and whatever that thing is called. Let's get rid of Windows. Let's go straight into DOS. There's a utility we can run. It's called MSD, Microsoft Diagnostics. Here we go. This is going to give us a little more info on this machine. Okay, so it's coming up as a 486SX, but I'm pretty sure it's an SLC. It has 12 megs of RAM built in, obviously. It does not have a coprocessor, so that does qualify it as an SX. It's actually coming up, BIOS categories, IBM PS2 model 70/80, which is kind of interesting. MSD was not the most accurate way of identifying machine specs, clearly. It's coming up as a 257 megabyte drive, so it's probably maybe a 260. Let's go ahead and shut her down. We have a lot to go through today, so I'm not going to go into great depth of these machines. So, the battery no longer really holds a charge, but I've considered rebuilding the battery pack on this one. One of the things I like to do on my laptops, especially, is I like to occasionally pull the batteries out and just inspect them, make sure the cells aren't bursting or leaking. Let's take a look. Yeah, you want to look for corrosion on these contacts. If you find you have corrosion on any of these contacts on any batteries, pull them out while you still can. This one is in pretty good shape physically, and it could stand a complete rebuild. But right now I'm not looking at spending the kind of money it would take to do that. But if I were to choose a laptop for my collection to receive a new battery, it would be this one. If I had one to choose from, because this one is really in that good condition. Okay. Let's take a look at the the options that it doesn't have. Let's open up the door in the back here, and you can see that it has your standard serial parallel PS2 on the side here. But what does it not have? There is no docking station on this one, no docking station port of any kind. So this is a fairly less expensive version. I don't want to say inexpensive, but it's not as expensive as the normal 355 series or 300 series, in that it does not have a docking station port. It does have flip-down feet, which IBM was really good about implementing on their machines for many years to give this a nice typing angle. There is no cover over the PCM-CIA slot. There would have been a removable panel if you were not using the the PCM-CIA slot on this machine. You could either put it on, or if you needed to put a modem in there, or I have an Ethernet adapter. No, that's an Ethernet adapter. You could put that panel back on if you didn't need it. Another thing I want to point out is it only has one PCM-CIA slot, one Type 3, one Type 2, Type 1. Normally there would be two Type 2s, but this one doesn't have that second button, and if you take this out, there's nothing behind it. So it's again, it's a stripped down version of the 300 series. But it does have that killer TFT color display, which was a very, very major selling point for a laptop like this. Let's take a look at our next victim. Okay, this particular laptop was a star in one of my more recent videos, so you guys might recognize this right off the bat. This is our Toshiba Satellite. 110 CT. One of the features I love about these, some of these earlier satellites, is they did feature integrated power supplies, meaning all you needed was a simple radio cord to power it up. Batteries are very easy to change on these, and they just had a very user-friendly layout of components, ports, and other things. So let's power it up. Now this laptop is, we're now into the Pentium class of laptops that I own. The only other 46 that I've got is the NEC. So we're now into Pentiums. I don't have anything really any older than that right now. Power switch is right on the side here, in the front, towards the front. Like IBM, Compaq, and AST, Toshiba was another user of the AccuPoint or Track Stick. There were many different brand names for this depending on who you were buying from. But this one, this is just another example of that IBM TrackPoint device in a non-IBM laptop. It's a very loud hard drive, which is pretty common for some of these earlier 2.5-inch IDE hard drives. And it's very thick. Because it's a Pentium class machine, it is quite thick, has substantial cooling in order to keep it operational. Now, I believe this laptop does have a cooling fan somewhere, although I can't see it. It may only have passive cooling, to be honest with you. This is running Windows 95, and for some reason it's set to the wrong resolution. We need to correct that for a sec. It's running at the wrong resolution. I don't know why that is, but this laptop is believed to be a Pentium 90, possibly a Pentium 100. So it's a first generation Pentium. So we are, early in the Pentium era here. It does have a beautiful TFT display. This is about, I guess, pushing over 10 inches or so. Almost 11, about 11 and a quarter inches of usable space here. That's fairly decent. For a laptop of that time period, that is fairly reasonable. This laptop was manufactured sometime in '96. It could be as early as mid to late '95, possibly sometime in early '96. But that was a period of transition for laptops. This laptop does not feature a built-in audio interface of any kind, or no digital audio of any sort. And it wasn't until around '96, '97 that became a standard feature on almost every laptop, except for the ultra-cheap models. You can hear that hard drive churning away. Now this laptop came to me from, it was actually at the town dump. It was ready to be loaded onto a truck to be hauled away and disposed of, and there is no turning back. Once these devices land on that truck, their fate is sealed. So this one was definitely a rescue, if I were to call it that. The IBM that I just showed you was, it was lucky. But this one was on the truck on its way to hell. Well, not on the truck, but it was on the pallet ready to be loaded. So I snapped this one up real quick. And it's actually an amalgamation of two different satellites. I had another one, I think it was a 110 or 100 CS. And I combined the two laptops to make this one. There were some damaged plastics on both, and I was able to make one good unit out of both laptops. So I'm not going to go too crazy with this one. It does have, I can't run DXDiag because it's got Windows 95 without DirectX installed. But this has, I believe, the factory image on it. This is the factory image. It has the Toshiba logo on the Windows about this machine screen. So this is the factory image. It's never been messed with. 8 megs of RAM, and it's an early Pentium. And I did cover the hard drive size on this in my last video, and we're going to just take another look at that. It is it's a 500 meg drive. that came from, oh, you know what, the hard drive came from a different laptop, I think. But it's still, like I said, it is what it is. If this had the optional audio interface, there would be a microphone right here, I believe. Or that could be for cooling. It might be a cooling vent, I think, for the inverter board, which is right there. And again, let's take a look at what it has for ports. You've got VGA, parallel, serial, PS2. You've got a I think this one has a built-in modem. No, this one does not have a built-in modem, but it does have 2 Type 2 PCMCA slots, room for a pony. And I've actually got a card I'm going to throw in there in my pile of adapters. So this will actually be outfitted with a modem and a combination Ethernet card. This laptop might actually be used in a future video for we're gonna play with some web browsing, perhaps see what we can do with this one. I think it's a good candidate for that. No CD-ROM drive. That would have been an expensive add-on at the factory. Should notice some interesting marks on the side that I didn't quite notice before. On the battery door. Let's check the battery door. Something doesn't look right to me. What makes this laptop special is literally the fact that it doesn't have any broken bits. There's nothing on this laptop that is cracked, snapped off, or missing. And that makes it kind of a unicorn in my book. Once again, check these contacts for any corrosion. That would indicate that the battery is leaking internally and must be removed to protect the machine. Okay, on to our next one. What do we have here? Well, if this is any indication, one of the things I like to do with my collection is, number one, I buy bags for every laptop I own. Every laptop gets a bag. And I get these bags usually from Savers. They're very cheap. You can find some really good examples of early 90s laptop bags over at Savers. I've been very fortunate about that. Their prices are very reasonable. Oh yes, there's the optional floppy drive. Now this is another machine that is a prized system for me because it took me a long time to find one of these in good condition. It took me a very long time to find one. I had one of these way back in the day. It was given to me by a good friend who I actually just spoke to today. We've been friends since 1996. Anyway, this is a Compaq LTE 5280. This was Compaq's answer to the IBM ThinkPad, really. It was a very good, half-hearted, full-hearted attempt at building a laptop for the business customer. Because laptops are so expensive back then, it wasn't very common for laptops to be marketed towards consumers. They were so expensive that they were an absolute luxury item, and I can't stress that enough. This laptop was made in '97. Originally featured Windows 95. It might be running Windows 98 right now. But again, this is in absolutely pristine condition, as good as I can get it. This was the result of combining two 5000 series LTEs. I actually have the parts donor, the 5400, still upstairs. And I did use a lot of parts from the 5400 in this one. Mostly cosmetic bits, a battery, a power supply, little things. Oh, and the CD-ROM drive, which it took me 3 years to find a CD-ROM drive, I might add. 3 years, and I had to buy an entire laptop to get it. So this one has the original door in the back. This simply pulls open to reveal a docking station port. Now there was a very nice docking station available for this that turned this laptop into a full desktop with PCI cards. It was a very nice system when fully decked out. Parallel, serial, VGA. You've got your audio input, audio output jacks. It has a built-in infrared port in the back, or infrared window. Very, 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 very light scratching on the lid almost non-existent, in fact. And as a matter of fact, this battery that's been sitting on my coffee maker for the past year, I put it aside because I want to get another one. This is the clock battery that goes in this laptop, and this battery is no damn good. So I've got to build a new battery. I got to bring this over to Batteries Plus and see if they can find me a cell for it. But they've got the tab welders and everything there, so I'll have them build me a battery for it. Otherwise, it'll still run, but it just doesn't keep time or anything. Now, this was an early example of laptops that could be essentially modular and fully customizable on the fly. This laptop has a quick changeable CD-ROM drive. Pull that right out. And you can pop your floppy drive in here, which I have in the bag right there. It's got a hard drive caddy in the front here, which is mounted in its own custom little canister. I have two of these cans. I have this one and I have another one, just in case I need to replace it or whatever. The battery pops up from here. Now this battery is no good, but it's there. I have another battery pack that's completely disassembled. I was planning on putting cells in it, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But we will do that in a future video. Manufactured March of '97. This drive here. So, if you got any doubts. I actually believe this laptop was made in '96. I think this was made in late '96, if I recall. The dates are stamped inside all over the place. All right, on the bottom we have a memory door. Again, very easy laptop to service, to maintain, and to own. There are some Achilles heels with these LTEs. They have a few weaknesses. One of them being they're just a very fragile machine. The doors tend to break off of them, and finding one with the doors intact is pretty difficult. Almost impossible to find one with all the doors and no case fractures. As a matter of fact, this is the exact make and model of laptop that McLaren still uses for software interfacing with the McLaren F1 supercar. As a matter of fact, McLaren service centers have stockpiles of these in various states of disrepair, just in case the modern replacement for this fails. Because if they lose these laptops and they lose for whatever reason, the modern system has a problem, they cannot interface with the ECUs in those cars at all. It just cannot be done. There's a whole big discussion thread on that very topic. Does it make this laptop any more valuable? That's a matter of dispute. It does give it some street credibility, though. One of the weaknesses is this LCD readout here. That readout is your system status panel. It tells you whether what drives are being accessed, whether the battery is charging, if the power supply is connected. It gives you all that information. It's kind of like your info dashboard, if you will. And right now it should be showing a battery charge indicator. This panel has been replaced with one that actually... So what happens to this panel is the icons on this panel tend to drop off. They tend to stop working. And it's because of the contact strip behind it. The adhesive tends to fail. That's a very common problem with this laptop, and there isn't much you can do to fix it. It's kind of one of those things that was an issue even when they were brand new. I remember the laptop that I had when I was younger, the same model. It had, I think, 50% of those icons were still functioning, and that was back in that was in 1998. When it was about a year and a half old. Let's turn it on. Okay, so we have a lot of these icons still work, but not all of them. Most of them do. Looks like all the battery icons are working. And I think I noticed, so caps lock is working, floppy access, hard drive access, line power is working. Battery's dead. F1 to continue, please. Now this one has 82 megs of RAM installed. which is, it's been significantly upgraded. It's a Pentium 120. It's running Windows 95 Plus. I'm just noticing that a lot of these icons do work. So that's, I didn't expect that. But I bet if I put a little bit of pressure down here, they'll start to cut out. So don't do that. This is Compaq's version of the AccuPoint eraser mouse. TrackPoint. I keep calling it AccuPoint, and I get a lot of crap for that. But whatever. I call it what I call it. Again, this is another laptop that I really don't ever plan on getting rid of. It just has so much nostalgic value for me. I mean, it was one of the first laptops I ever used. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about the LTE 5280. It was actually, so my best friend Doug, his father had one through work. He was a publisher, or an editor of a publishing company. And he had one of these on his kitchen table that he was using. And I needed to get a battery for my Toshiba T3200SX. I needed a clock battery for it. I had no internet access. He was the only person I literally knew who had internet access in 1996. So I went over to his house, and I said, can you get me a battery? I'll give you the money or something. Actually, he ended up paying for it. He actually bought it for me. We went on Lycos. Lycos. Remember Lycos? And we searched for this particular battery. He found the battery. He paid for it. It was $15. I remember that very, very well. And he ordered it, and he gave me the battery for nothing. But it was on a Compaq LTE 5150 that he did that to. And it was on Lycos. I remember that. I got a lot of memories, a lot of early internet memories occurred on one of these. My friend Doug, we used to chat AOL Instant Messenger, and he was on one of these, and now it's on my 486. So let's take a quick look at what we've got here for a system, then we're going to move on. We've kind of put a lot of time into this one. It's got a 1.32 gig hard drive. It has 545 megs free, 82 megs of RAM, Pentium 120. Nice, beautiful display. This is about the same size as our Toshiba, about 11, a little bit over 11.25 inches or so. And this is a TFT, obviously, on one of these. That's what it's going to be. This laptop cost around $5,000 when it was new, and that was relatively inexpensive for a laptop. So it has a sleep-wake button right here on the front, on the top. This is when laptops really started getting good. You had an optional CD-ROM drive, a easily replaceable hard drive, nice color display, excellent onboard sound. The first time I ever heard an MP3 was on an LTE 5150. The very first time I ever heard an MP3. And it was through these displays. Looks like we've got a problem here. MM System 02 device ID has been, yeah, we'll have to figure that out. I think the audio, oh yeah, the audio driver didn't load. And if I recall, that was a bug on these laptops sometimes. The audio board won't engage until, and that usually happens if the clock battery's dead, I think. Let's see, let's restart it. Let's see what it does. This has happened on this laptop. If it sits for too long, for whatever reason, the audio doesn't work until we restart it. So let's see what it does. And if I recall, my 5150 did the same thing. So it's not like an issue with this particular machine. It's just it's an LTE thing. You wouldn't understand. Yeah, we got sound. Now we have sound. One of the other things I loved about this laptop, loved, was the speaker location. I really do wish more laptops had this. The LTE 5000 series is one of the only laptops besides some of the PowerBooks that had speakers mounted in the display housing. But that was only possible because the display housings back then were so thick. So you actually had room for a nice acoustic chamber on either side. You can't really do that today. Not only that, but today laptop displays are designed or expected to be edge to edge. And you'll notice in the 5400 version of this laptop, the speakers are actually smaller and don't sound as good. So, a little bit of a history lesson there. Let's shut her down. We're going to move on to our next laptop. This next laptop should be quite familiar to most of you. This is the crown jewel of my laptop collection. If I was asked to get rid of every laptop except for one, for whatever reason, if the house caught fire and I could save one computer from this entire house, it would be this one. If there was one computer that I could save, this would be the one. This is my IBM 760 XL. One of my favorite, if not my favorite. Obviously it is my favorite laptop for a lot of reasons. And for some reason, oh, there it goes. It's not, I'm like, it's not turning on! Anyway, not charging. So let's take a quick look around. So, this was a fairly luxury laptop for '97 when it was made. This laptop was, I think, the last of the 700 series. And actually, no, it wasn't the last. There was one after this one. But it has some pretty interesting features for what it is. This laptop has a rubberized soft touch coating over the entire machine. It has a rubberized pad that is unfortunately degrading a little bit on the bottom of it. It has the option of a full docking station. There are many docking stations that IBM offered for this laptop. And of course you have your rear mounted ports behind a door. Parallel serial VGA. This is for the external floppy drive, which I do have. I have every accessory, I think, for this laptop. Two Type 2, one Type 3, BCMCIA with a Zircom adapter in it. It has, yeah, it's just a fantastic machine. Power is over in the back. You've got audio in, audio out. Just a fantastic machine. I'm going to plug it in, turn it on. Like the 300 series, this also follows the bento box model, so you basically can flip the keyboard up like that. There's your hard drive, your battery, your CD-ROM. Again, you can replace the CD-ROM with a floppy drive or a second battery, and I actually have the filler panel for that too. This does not have the original battery, but it does need to be rebuilt. It will take a charge for the most part. Once you lock, there it goes. So when you open up the, I'm going to show you what I just did here. When you open up the display, the keyboard, you'll notice. Let me see if I can re-angle it. Yeah, you'll notice that when I open this up, that panel should go blank. Yeah, it didn't this time. Yeah, it didn't. There's a micro switch in there. Yeah. So when I open this up, okay, the little charging arrow goes away, but when I close it down, it comes back. So yeah, it's all cattywampus like that. One of the cool features of the 700 series that has not been replicated by any manufacturer ever, which is very unique, and that is the automatic keyboard tilting feature. So when the laptop is closed, you'll notice that it grabs onto these little latches and it drops the keyboard back down to its flat position. When you open it up, it opens the keyboard and lifts it right back up again. That can be defeated if you drop the keyboard down manually and then lock it in place. There's two locks, one here, one here. But when you do that, you'll notice that when I go to open it up, it makes these really god-awful clunking sounds. I prefer not to do that, but that is an option. The speakers are in a very unfortunate location on this laptop. They are mounted in the wrist pad, so when you're typing, you're blocking out all the audio. So this is a laptop that's best used with headphones. Let's fire it up. IBM had a much better go of it with construction quality than Compaq did. So these laptops generally held up better. The ThinkPad line usually had a better overall fit and finish than Compaq laptops did. They were built with more exotic materials. This laptop's entire lower pan, is built out of a I think it's a carbon composite plastic or some kind of thermoset, fancy something or other. It's pretty exotic for a laptop for '97, but it holds up very well. It resists breakage much better than ABS plastic does. This laptop is built in a very modular fashion. The entire, here, we'll open it back up again. The entire computer itself is mounted inside this metal box. The motherboard on this laptop is very small. It's actually in, I believe, 3 sections stacked on top of each other, crammed into this metal box. It's better protected against shock. It's better protected against essentially all threats, foreign and domestic, than really any other laptop of this time period. And you'll notice if you've ever opened up a Panasonic Toughbook, the motherboard is built into a similar box because IBM, I believe, manufactured the motherboard or the computer side of the Panasonic Toughbook. Panasonic Toughbook is essentially a ThinkPad, I want to say 700 series, that has been mounted into a custom case. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on that though. Volume control is right here on the top. There's a simple volume slider. It has a beautiful, I think this is a full 12-inch display. Yeah, this is a 12-inch TFT display. Resolution, I believe, is 1024 by 7, no, 800 by 600. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's an SVGA, so 800 by 600 panel. Let's see. This is a Pentium 166. I'm pretty sure it has MMX built in. Yeah, MMX, 80 megs of RAM. And this has the larger hard drive option. It is a hard drive on this is a 2.85 gig. I believe it's actually called a 3 gig. It's a 3 gig. I call it a 3 gig. So, all right. Once again, I mean, this laptop is, I mean, this is in mint condition. I've had this one for a couple of years now. When I bought it, it had the original image on it, the original system image. It was used for an HVAC environment. This was basically used in an office, and it was set up to control an HVAC system. So it wasn't necessarily used in a portable fashion. It really showed no signs of wear and tear. I paid a lot of money for this one. I actually bought this one on eBay. I think I paid $160 for it, which to me was a lot of money, but I would never find another one. And to this day, I have yet to find another one in this condition. I have been looking for parts machines over the years, and I did find one. And that is how I found, that's how I got the power supply, the better power supply, because the original one was damaged. And I think I found a few other parts and upgrades for this one. This laptop almost died. I spilled ginger ale into it. Not one of my proudest moments. It wasn't running at the time, but it wouldn't start up after. I didn't think it would, but yeah. I thought it was a goner. I really did. I didn't, like, there's no way I'm going to fix this. As it turns out, though, once I disassembled it and I cleaned the motherboard off, and I did a nice job. I mean, you would never know that anything was ever spilled into it. It wasn't in the keyboard. It was actually through the PCMCIA slot. Once that happened, or once I cleaned it off properly, it worked fine. There was nothing wrong with it. It's still working to this day. I have no side effects in any way. So, one of the problems with the 700 series, though, is the soft touch material that they used on the keyboards and the wrist pads and everything, or not, I'm sorry, on the display housing, it has a tendency to degrade, and you'll find a lot of these are covered in like a gritty, mushy substance. And that's what happens, and that's why this laptop really doesn't get any use, because it generally gets worse as it contacts the oil in your skin. So this one survived only because it wasn't used much. So battery still takes a charge, but it doesn't hold it for very long. I think I had this thing running a couple weeks ago, and it was fully charged. Occasionally I'll wipe it off with Windex. I would not use alcohol on this. I do not use alcohol to clean the surface on one of these because it will degrade the finish even more. So don't do that. I did that when I was a kid on the one I had, and I made it so far worse. So I had one of these. A little bit of a history on this. I had a 760 XL when I was in 11th grade. I bought it from a computer company that I worked for. They actually sold it to me on payments. And once they, because they were going to get rid of me, and they didn't tell me this, because the company was closing that store. So it was almost immediately after I paid it off that they let me go, which was, hey, at least they did that. But they closed the store about a month and a half later. And yeah, that was my first computer job. That was in 2001. No, so I was in 10th grade back then. Yeah, 10th grade. So I'm using a little bit of Windex, and I'm going to kind of buff it off a little bit. It works. It works. It doesn't ruin it. Alcohol, on the other hand, will. It will destroy the finish. I've seen so many of them that have had that happen. But yeah, this is really starting to degrade. So I try not to. I don't keep this laptop out. I don't use it anymore. I know how. Yeah, it's just unfortunate that they use this soft touch material. And you know, it's funny. They still use that stuff on electronics to this very day. Here's a multimeter that I bought just a couple of years ago, and it has, you know, the same soft touch rubbery stuff on it, and it's all sticky now. It's not going to be long before this turns into a complete disaster, but that's what it is. So if I do use this laptop, I will use it with an external mouse and possibly a keyboard if it comes to that. We have one more for you. Okay, what do we have for you now? Well, this one is the most modern one I currently have that's not really in daily use. I will show you one more laptop though. I just remember there's one more I want to show you, and that's going to be the end of it. This is the Averatec that we talked about in our last, I think 2 videos ago maybe. This is the Averatec 3200. Might even have a fully charged battery. No, this one doesn't have it doesn't have a working battery, just remember. So this laptop here, I bought from Savers. Really because my computer videos are starting to stagnate. I needed a new subject, a new test dummy or whatever for a video. And I bought this, not expecting much. This is a Pentium 4. I'm sorry, an AMD Sempron 2800. Windows XP factory image. 512 megs of RAM, a 60 gig hard drive, and it hasn't been modified at all. It's all stock. This laptop came to me at a good time. I was looking for a new subject for a video, and this is one. A lot of these inexpensive Windows laptops did not survive. The time period in which they were meant for. Because they were so cheap, most consumers simply either upgraded or replaced them when anything went wrong. And this one looks like it was used very lightly. It has survived in remarkable condition. I really don't have a lot to say about this one. It does have it has a pretty cool, I mean, it has a DVD-ROM drive built in, a CD-RW. DVD-RW, it's a DVD-RW, I'm sorry. Better than I thought. This laptop was made in around 2005. I did just recently install The Sims and GTA 3 on this one, and it worked pretty well. Both games ran acceptably well for something of this vintage. The speakers are in another, just like the last couple of laptops you looked at. The speakers are mounted inside the wrist pad, so when you're typing, you're essentially blocking all sound. I really wish manufacturers didn't do that, but what can you do? It does have built-in wireless 802.11g. Not really much else to say about it. I mean, it's a pretty neat laptop. Its only virtue, and the only reason it's in my collection, is because it is a Pentium 4 laptop from that time period, and it will play most Pentium 3 games pretty acceptably. So I've got one more to show you, and then we're going to call it a day. This one's kind of an honorable mention. This is my ThinkPad R61. It's not vintage, but it's definitely obsolete. But is it really? This R61 is my daily driver at home. When I'm not using my iMac, I'm using this. I've used this for a live feed or two. It's currently running. It runs Windows 10. And it runs it quite well. Surprisingly well. This is a classic ThinkPad. It has the classic ThinkPad keyboard, the classic ThinkPad trackpad. It does have the roll cage that the T-Series has. The R-Series was kind of a less expensive, more of a desktop replacement, I believe, than the T-Series. It does not... it does have the ThinkPad ThinkLite, which is a rather crude form of keyboard illumination. It shines an orange or amber light down on the keyboard. I find it pleasant to use, and it can be toggled on and off by hitting function page up. Specs aren't that impressive on this one. It has, I believe, 4 gigabytes of RAM. And it has a, let me look up what it has for a processor. So, let's see if I can't do that real quick here. Four gigs of RAM. And it has a Pentium Core 2 Duo, Intel Core 2 Duo T8100 2.10 gigahertz. So, built-in CD-RW, DVD-RW drive. And this laptop oozes quality. I mean, this thing is rugged. It's, I mean, very stiff chassis. I love this. I love the construction quality of this laptop. It has metal hinges. I have the optional docking station upstairs, which is very handy because I have everything plugged into it. All I got to do is press a button to eject it, and it pops off. It's great. It's just one of my favorite laptops. I really, if I could buy this laptop brand new with a modern processor, 16 gigs of RAM, I would pay top dollar for it. Unfortunately, Lenovo doesn't believe that people want this type of functionality, durability, and quality. One of the things that have prevented me from plunking down $1,000 on a new T-Series, because I've been pricing them out, is the fact that they went to a soft textured finish, kind of like the old ThinkPads were, but on the keyboard. Now, I'm not crazy about that. I love the pebble grain texture of these classic ThinkPads. I love the keyboard layout. I love the trackpad. It's such an easy to use trackpad. I don't use gestures on my trackpads. I might use two-finger click on my Macs, but I just don't feel that any PC manufacturer has come close to Apple's glass trackpads. But, you know, Apple is Apple has a lot of bad things going for them, but one of the things I cannot, I can give them credit for. I can give them credit for building a trackpad that doesn't suck. Because these older trackpads, these tiny little trackpads with physical buttons, I believe were the best trackpads. And if you didn't like the trackpad, of course you've got the track point, which thankfully Lenovo still includes on the ThinkPad line, especially the T series. But yeah, I love this machine in a big way, but I'm not really planning on putting any effort or money into upgrading it because of its age. I just don't see that as a. I don't see I'll never get a return on that investment. So putting an SSD in it, to me, would make it faster, but it would not make sense from a financial standpoint. It just would not make sense. Because God only knows how much longer it has, before Windows 10 automatically updates and bricks it or something like that. I mean, this laptop was not intended to run Windows 10, but it does run it pretty well, as is. The only drivers that did not work, and I cannot fix, would be the memory card reader, and I think that's it. Everything works except the memory card reader. Another thing this laptop lacks, which would be handy, is an integrated webcam. But then again, a webcam from 2008, when it was made, would be pretty pitiful. So I'm not really too worried about that. But it blows me away that a 10-year-old laptop like this one can do everything fairly well that I used my MSI for. The MSI laptop, for those of you wondering, has been sold off. I regret ever buying it. It wasn't a bad laptop, but it wasn't the laptop that I wanted. It wasn't the one for me. I'll just leave it at that. But it was a great laptop. Never really had any problems with it. I just didn't like the layout. I didn't like the form factor. It was just not what I wanted. So if I do buy another Windows laptop, it'll be a ThinkPad T series or an A series. The A series is basically a T470 with an AMD processor. So, and I'm okay with AMD. I've had pretty good luck with AMD. As a matter of fact, my only Windows desktop currently is an AMD, or my only modern Windows desktop. Well, that concludes our this part of the series. The next one will be a Macintosh desktop series video. So I'm going to show you all the Macintosh desktops I currently own, all 2 of them. So that'll be a fairly short video. This one was long because I have a lot of Windows machines, and I have a lot to talk about them, so, okay. Alright guys, until then, have a great day.